right. Welcome, everyone. Let's begin. And so sit comfortably. So those first few breaths in these first few moments are precious. In a relatively short period of time, we can drop maybe our expectations. We can exhale more consciously and ground into presence. Fascinated with the reality of what it feels like in a body to be present. And likewise, what it feels like to not be present. There are very often clear signposts, clear flags that show us both of these very human experiences. Which is why there's so much common guidance with reference to inhabiting the pelvis and inhabiting the core, because this is where it's all making the difference. So when you can feel, allow yourself to feel, allow yourself to breathe the legs and the pelvis, the interior, the deep belly. Again, these places we reference all the time. Then we have begun again to return. We're already showing up. The headspace is a miracle, brilliant and gifted, but it tends to operate all alone without rich and full necessary connection to core, to presence, to intuition and instinct, and all of the things that in ways we have learned to live without. So see if you can, as you exhale, truly enjoy and allow for the length and the depth and the duration of the exhalation without control, to just relax into more spaciousness. So that might seem like a paradox. The exhalation is emptiness, but we're looking for that spaciousness. And this is a sign that we're not contractive in our exhale, but we're truly releasing. What are we releasing, right? The discernment is necessary to know what it is that we're letting go of. And this is always the charge. It's that extra something very complex that hangs, it hooks into our system and just remains. It lingers. Until we find the sweetness of that release, that exhale. So what is all of this recycling and recirculating conversation around letting go, right? Mastery of release. Because, at least in my experience and opinion, it is one of the sweetest gifts of life. And when you exhale and the top of the head opens up, opposite the ground plane, opens towards the sky, as a direct reciprocation of a release, especially any release that's felt in the heart, the chest, the gut, the bones, the legs. Something is reciprocally released upwards. And we gain back a little bit more of our inherent height, length, space between the vertebrae, between the internal organs. We change our chemistry when we let go of tension, hypertension. Change the way that you're sitting, change the geometry of your seat. So you might just take one leg out. And it's a good practice to keep space in and around the joints. So if you go right to a locked straight leg, as I could easily do right here, you're going to bend a little bit. And the bending usually invites not only space but tone, and tone meaning that we're turning on. We're turning on, and that's another aspect of presence in a body, is not that you're rigid or contractive and not holding your breath. It's just that there's an attention, there's an attention in the body. Push the sitting bones down and a little bit back behind you, and then let the fabric of the belly scoop back, hollow towards the spine. Now this is an interesting thing because you don't want to just suck your belly in, then you won't breathe. You have to be open enough in the chest, open enough in the lungs, the rib basket, the shoulders, the neck, all the upper branches, so that as the belly hollows towards the spine, you're breathing more fully in the upper half of the body. So just a few more moments here before we get into the bigger movements. Again, change the way that you're sitting. So already we've begun a very slow, conscious practice of variation. 3 different ways to sit in just a few moments. Continue to allow your awareness to reside down in the deep core. The core is difficult to understand with regards to where it is, but it's something you must feel. And this is why, again, we point to the deep belly, close to the spine. We point to the deep pelvis, close to the sacrum. It's really the entire space of the legs and the pelvis and all of the belly, all the way up to the kidneys. This is the house of the core engine from which all creativity flows, from source. So let's make our way up to standing, and take your time and let that transition be creative. And stand with a neutral stance, so that means the feet are close and parallel. And let the hands be on the body somewhere. I often touch the belly since it gives me a sense of where I'm at in the core, just at the lightest touch of the belly, anywhere on the belly, or the low front ribs, or the heart, or the front of the hips, or the sacrum and the low belly. So these are ways to check in, to bring this power of reflection and touch the experience. So drop the right foot back just a little bit, everybody, turning the back leg out a little. And the left leg is straight ahead. We're going to bend the knees. And when we drop down into the core by bending a little bit, getting a little closer to the earth, we're in the practice of coiling. And this, in the Embody Keys practice, this is a way of coming in and finding more potentiality. We're going to start to move forward and back. Now start with a very small range of motion, like you're only moving your hips, 8 or 10 inches backwards and forwards, so that you can have a chance to really pay attention to the feet. Grab onto the ground more actively with your feet, not just with the toes, but you'll feel that the entire foot activated means that the core of the foot is lifting, which helps the naturally upward flowing energy move through the ankles, through the knees, through the hips, into the pelvis, and upwards through the midline. And as you move front to back, you're actually pulling the ground backwards with your feet to move your hips forward towards a bit of a back bend. And you're pushing the ground forward with the feet to rock back, drop the chest a little. It's a slight fold at the hips. So that's the simple movement. Start to put everything back together. So the emphasis on what we call tonality, which is the language of engagement throughout your entire wildcat being, is something you're going to want to play with as a baseline. So pulling the earth back with your feet means that the hamstrings and the buttocks are turning on, as two examples. Pushing the feet forward, pushing the ground forward to rock back means the front body engages, like the quadriceps and the core belly. But really what we're looking for is to find that everything is engaged creatively no matter what we're doing. But you can notice patterns of pulling and pushing the feet. If you want a little more, bend the knees and sit a little deeper. Try not to tuck the pelvis. Pulling and pushing yourself through space and time consciously. The metaphor of moving in water. Start to find the variations now as the legs begin to turn. Even though you're still orienting front to back in the pelvis, you might turn the front leg out or in. The back leg can turn out and also in. So you find your slow dance. And the more variation that you play with, the greater the context of the experience becomes. In other words, the more informative, the more creativity there is, the more colors and textures there are, the more you're getting from this movement, from this practice. The shape of standing becomes so much more than the mundane task that it tends to be. It starts to become, just as in dance, it becomes an exploration of rhythm, an exploration of what's possible in your body at this time. We're still, the left leg is leading, but now you find all kinds of variations. You might even cross the midline a little bit by dropping the back leg a little more to the left. Strong through the hips. Now the belly, the torso, the lower half of the torso is on completely all the way around. But remember that you have to be soft in your breath in the upper body. Now to change sides, turn to your right, pivoting, the navigational key of pivot. You turn to the right, 180 degrees. And you keep rocking, and then the right leg ends up in front, of course, and you continue. So again, there's this, it would be easy. And those of you like myself who spend a long time in yoga is incredible. At the pause, the pose and the pause. But what's interesting here is if we take the destination away, if there's no pose, we often find ourselves, well, what am I doing? Right? But your whole life is one long chain of creative transitions. So make the most of this moment. Bring the tone. So slow it down and engage it more. Let the breath be free. Keep Stay with the rhythm. Articulate through the feet. So the core translates down through the hip, down through the knee, through the ankle, to the feet. And the feet are reflecting the intelligence and the clarity of the translation, of the pulse of the creative movement. In other words, how well the movement is coming through you is going to be largely reflected in the feet in the key of standing, or just in general. Last couple of moments here. Now you ought to be feeling like you're working quite hard. The legs are getting a little tired, you're getting toasty. Ooh. Now a quarter turn to your left, and you come out to your neutral stance. So let the feet come close together. Keep the knees soft, don't lock. Give yourself a chance to feel that there is so much energy that's been unlocked and reorganizing and is moving deeply and profoundly right now already. If you don't feel that, that's okay. It's okay. So this whole practice is really recovering our power of subtler and subtler awareness, which cannot happen without a body. So source, unity, whatever you want to call it, is the body. They're not separate. Everything is integration. That is nature. That is existence. It is being. Right? And let the hips start to move side to side. So now we're moving bilaterally in the key of standing, bending the knees a little bit more. Let the head stay relatively still over the midline. So as you push the hips out to one side, right, you might feel it that way. You want to also resist that movement, even though it's allowed for. So this is the tone, kicking the hips out to the side, resisting our own movement as if we're moving in water. But can you orient to pulling the ground side to side, pushing and pulling the ground side to side with your feet to activate the movement of the hips? And you start to get into these side bends. So I start to bend the knees more and drop the hips lower, and you can really start kicking the hips out to the side and maybe looking down over the low shoulder as we often do. The arms and the shoulders begin to articulate, again, as if you're in water, you're swimming. And there's all of this beautiful variation in what can happen in the joint. Did you know that the shoulder joint evolved over however long to be able to point everywhere the eye could look? And that includes, of course, how the head turns on the neck and how the eyes could move in the orbit, in the socket. So as you start to play with shoulders, you're also playing with neck and you're playing with eyes. Very strong. Remember, everywhere that you're stretched, you need to engage. Now let the feet dance. So now as you move side to side, you start to turn. The legs turning, but the hips still stay forward. They still look forward to your whatever your orientation is. But the legs begin to turn and the heels pop up every now and then, or maybe a foot comes off the floor. Strong. Easy now. Breathe freely. And then what we're going to do is we're going to start to hinge more at the hips, coming into the key of folding. And folding is primarily just flexion of the spine, flexion of the hip, as you fold down and continue your track, your rhythmical movement side to side. And again, everyone, listen, you could just be very slack and you can go through the motions and you'll still get a lot from this practice. But if you slow down, if you close or soften the eyes and slow down, and I'm not saying anybody's going fast. I can't even see the people on the screen because nobody has their video on. Thanks for that. Well, what I'm saying is, and I'm talking to myself as well, is that when you slow down and engage, so twice as strong and half as fast, or quarter speed, put the hands on the earth, put the palms down, bending the knees, moving side to side. Then when you engage at that level, okay, then exponentially you receive so much more from the practice. And it becomes a strength training as well, which we all need. So the footwork is here, you're moving side to side. Your legs are probably a little toasty, maybe a little tired. Empty the neck, look around. To last a little bit longer here, you push the hands down into the ground more deeply, letting the feet not be bearing so much weight, and working the chest and the core more by pushing the hands down. And you may notice, I don't know if you're watching, the hands can walk around and get all kinds of creative. And then we're going to come down into our third key here in this sequence of squatting. Now the squat doesn't matter with regards to its geometry. You can be in an asymmetrical squat like I am now with my right foot leading. You can also just be in a symmetrical squat. In general, to take care of the knees, you're going to need to point the knees and the feet in the same direction relevant to each leg. That's very important, especially when you load the legs. Also, grab onto the floor with your toes and activate the feet more than you think you need to. Now we're going to start moving around in the squat, basically moving side to side or pivoting. If your one foot is in front, you can rock forward and back a little bit. I like to put my hands down and get into these monkey turns where I'm just letting whatever wants to happen, happen. Oh, yeah. And then have a seat, the key of sitting. So notice also that natural progression from standing to sitting, a very human thing. It doesn't matter which leg is in front or how you sit, just so long as it's relatively accessible and comfortable. But also don't sit the same way all the time. And again, let me invite you to feel all of the movement. It's possible for us to get through pretty much an entire day and not feel anything nearly as deep as what you're feeling right now. That's not a judgment, that's a reality. Especially if you can feel the life moving through your pelvis and through your belly and through your heart. And the pelvic floor, everyone, see if you can relax the pelvic floor so deeply and thoroughly that it floats towards the top of the head without any control. Fear tends to show up in many places, especially the kidneys and in the gut and in the pelvic floor. So we become very skilled in releasing tension from these places. So there is a practice in Kung Fu and other practices that are called sticky hands. And we did this recently. We're going to do 2 versions of this. The idea is to begin with a light touch. Anywhere. It can be hands, it can be wrists, forearms. But what I want to do is I want to challenge you this morning with something a little different. Usually it's a very, very light touch, and it's this beautiful dance in how no matter where the partners go, usually you would do this with another person. This is the COVID version of sticky hands. That's terrible. Okay, scratch that. The idea is to stay in light touch, and sort of wherever you go, you know, there's this intimacy, there's this relational context. And what you're going to end up doing, as you're already probably doing right now, if you're following along, is letting the joints, of especially the upper half of the body, articulate. Okay, so that's the very soft version. But what I want you to start to do is, in turn, you're going to let the hands or let the arms push and pull into each other with more and more strength. In fact, it gets so deep and sometimes intense that you'll be shaking every once in a while. And you're going to find these changes in how the relationships work. For example, I can push my right hand into my resisting left hand like this. But then I can also come back the other way, right? Or I can change direction relatively quickly. So start to play around. This is unteachable, okay? This is unteachable. But it's not necessary to teach it. What I want to do is remind you of how to relate to yourself. So let the wrists, forearms, you can even push a hand against a bicep. And you push and pull in different ways, any way that's possible. And I want you to really work. You're going to really, really work. And you're going to find out where you're weak in a shoulder. You're going to find out where you're weak in the neck. And that's okay. Just go easy. So I'm going to get quiet for a moment and really dive into this. And I want you to do the same. Just push and pull against yourself and deeply and dynamically. Move the head around. Let the neck be free of all of this so it can watch and observe and hold space. Very strong, everyone. Try something different. So you ought to be feeling very toasty now, in the upper body. Okay, now what you're going to do is let the arms separate, but let them stay connected. Now it goes liquid smooth as if in water, and you can relax because all of that deep, powerful pushing and pulling has just been released. But you continue to move, and even though the hands are spacious, the arms are not touching, there's maybe even deeper intimacy between them. So this is, if you've never done anything like this, I welcome you to the world of the weird, the wonderfully weird. It's not weird at all, it's just only relative. Even when the hands are very far apart, they're connected. They're connected because both of those arms belong to you. And you can also feel the space between them. Very soft, very powerful, very fluid. And then let the hands slowly come to rest somewhere on the knees or in the lap. Beautiful. Let's sit with cross-legged with the left leg in front. Left leg crossed in front, and you're going to allow yourself to, and use your arms and hands however you like. You're going to rock side to side. Culturally speaking, the side bodies tend to be pretty stuck. And so already working in tandem, working the hips and the side body, the legs, all at the same time. When you lean to one side, keep the belly strong. Excuse me. Try not to tuck the pelvis, and make sure that you are staying more forward on the loaded sitting bone. So whichever sitting bone has your weight, stay forward on it instead of back of it. Again, untucked. Let the head look around. Let the shoulders move around, and let the hip you're leaning away from lift right off the floor. The floating knee pointing way, way across opposite the head. So now let the arms, you're just basically dancing. Let the arms articulate much as they did when we did the strong and the soft, sticky hands. Moving side to side and finding the subtleties and the variations that are possible just by like turning your head in one direction, feeling how the chest can look a little bit left or a little bit right. Can you stay connected to the legs, through the core, complexly engaged? Pendiculation, intramuscular coordination. Now let the hand come down and take a little bit of weight on the loaded side, and but don't notice when the hand comes down, what happens is you lose all of your core. You might lose a lot of your core. And so watch out for this. So keep the core on, even though the hand is now assisting. And what we're starting to do is share the load in the shoulder. And again, it's really important to keep the shoulder blade away from the floor on the loaded side, also towards the tail a little more. The shoulder head does not have a chance to dip down towards the floor. Pulls away from the floor. Now with the left leg in front, when you lean to your right, you can set your left leg where the left knee is pointing up and the left foot is on the ground. That's with the left leg forward. When you lean to your right, the left leg can set. When you lean to your left, you got to be careful with the right ankle. Tone the lateral right shin. You have to tone your peroneus longus, everyone. It's also called fibularis. It's the outer right shin, lateral, little toe side. Ooh, when you lean to your left. Okay, now when you come up next, just switch the way the legs are crossed and keep going. Make sure that the head is not doing the same thing every time you go to the side. Maybe you look up every time. Maybe you look down every time. Try different things. Try looking straight out in front of you. Now, when you lean to your left with your right leg leading, you load your left hand, you can set your right leg like this, where the foot is down and the knee is up. Oh, so all this complex movement through the corset. The corset is the whole body. It is the fabric. It is the tapestry. You know, you're going to come back up and just sit. Keep the right leg in front. And what we're going to do is, and we haven't been doing this enough lately, is the work in the pelvic. So recovering pelvic freedom. All right, so we're going to let the pelvis fall back and roll, pushing the ground forward with your sits bones. Leave the tail relaxed. Pull the ground back with your sits bones to lean, to tip the pelvis forward, anterior rotation, spinning on the axle of the hip joints. Pelvis falls back. Pull the ground back, pelvis leans forward. Orient to the earth. And then above the head is the relaxation of the scalp, the relaxation of the cranial bones, opening to the sky. So the pelvis leaning in, and this has taken me personally the last couple of years to really start to fully recover, and I'm still not there yet, the full range of motion in the sacral plexus, the lumbar spine, the core, and the hips. It's huge, and this will also, by the way, heal your knees. It will help you get your knees back. Now what you're going to do, right, is start to let the pelvis fall back and then come over on your left side. Lean a little to your left onto the left sitting bone, but you're on the back of that left sitting bone. And you're going to pull forward, but pull the left sitting bone back until the pelvis is tipped all the way in the strong belly. And go back and forth on this left side. Just go backwards and forwards a few times, a few pulsations. And get your arms involved. Relax the neck. Soften the eyes. You just enjoy putting everything back together again. This attention. And then whether you're forward or back, you're going to rock over to the other side, onto the right hip, slightly leaning onto the right hip, and again fall backwards and pitch forwards. And again, please orient to the ground. Move the ground backwards with your right sitting bone to roll the pelvis back, posterior rotation, and pull the ground back to roll the pelvis forward, anterior rotation, A-N-T-E-R-I-O-R. So you're moving the earth and tonifying. Okay, now come back to the middle and do a few more right down the middle. So this is all core. This is all core. Everything is core. Core, it means so many things. Core in its essence is how we are able to translate creative energy, translate life through us, each of us, without exception. Maybe we don't relate culturally to that, and probably not, but there's the invitation. Just a few more, everyone. Is like, can you really enjoy this? What seems so simple is so complex and so feeding the ego, so advanced. Okay, all right, here we go. Now come up into a squat, right foot leading. An asymmetrical squat, right foot is in front. And put the hands on the ground like a monkey and just kind of rock forward and back and see what you can do. Now again, to take care of your knees, point the feet where the thigh above is pointing. So the right foot and the right thigh point in the same direction. That can be difficult to discern where it's actually pointing. Same thing with the left leg. Where's the left foot pointing relative to the left knee? They should be in the same direction. So if you rock backwards and forwards and change directions a little bit, like turn your body a little bit to the right, you are micro-massaging and macro-massaging all of the lower half of the body, especially the low back, the hips, the knees. Phenomenal for the lower lymphatic system, for the gut. Now turn all the way around to your left, creatively, passing through a symmetrical squat until the left leg is in front, and continue to play. So you want to get used to pushing your hands down on the floor to be taking some of the weight off of the legs. Because this is part of getting up and down off the ground. The transition from standing to sitting happens through a squat almost all the time. You can take the knees really far away from each other, turning the feet and the knees out like this. Try this. Even though it's asymmetrical, I still have my left foot in front of the right, but turn the hands out and slide the knees outside from elbows to the hands. Embracing the arms out against the knees, letting the knees resist by pulling back into the arms. Just scrubbing, gently scrubbing, letting the head turn and look. Let the jaw come unhinged. Okay, now we're going to slowly take the hands out of the way. Walk the right foot in front. And then split the knees again, and let's do that on the other side. So you have an asymmetrical stance like this. Your knees can split far apart. Okay, and you're moving side to side, bracing the elbows against the knees and pulling the knees into the elbows. Try turning the hands out even more so the wrists are facing forward, the thumbs are on the outside facing back. Biceps turned away from each other. Breathe. Breathe. Now lift the hips And you'll come into a crossed fold, the right leg in front of the left. And you can let the legs turn more forward or keep the lateral rotation, but just dance around in this for a moment. The right leg crossing over the left in a short, very short crouch or a crossed fold. Try long legs, and really now, everybody, let the spine hang down. Let it cascade down like water falling from a cliff. The coolness behind the eyes. Now uncross and take the left leg in front, crossing the midline left over right. But keep the same tiny stance. Try lifting heels. Try lifting the balls of the feet. Be very articulate through the toes, because somehow when the feet are articulate and really awake, the neck and the head are less stressed. So you want to get out of your head. Lovingly find your feet. Find the pelvic floor. Okay, now come down and have a seat. Come lying down on your back. It's not the end of class, but come lying down on your back and rest. Because there are worlds to feel within you. Pay close attention to the release in the back of the neck that is mirroring the release perhaps through the tail and sacrum and the low back, which can maybe also be felt in the spaciousness in the Achilles tendons as the heels drift away from the back of the cranium. Pay close attention to how, if you're able to really empty the low front belly towards the floor, you might also feel this in the front of the throat, in the chest, but also at the third eye. And let the quadriceps, the thigh muscles, sort of drift deeper into the leg towards the hamstrings without locking the knees. Let the shins melt into the calves. In other words, give your front body to your back body. Now, bend the knees and walk the feet in towards the hips. And without tucking the pelvis, lift the hips up off the floor just an inch or two. Okay, and what you want to do is now lift the chest a little and bring the shoulder blades a little bit closer together underneath you and towards your tail. Drop the diaphragm though, hollowing the belly. Drop the sits bones without touching the floor with the buttocks. Okay, and then just drift the hips side to side just an inch off the floor. So you still want to resist this, just like we did standing. We did the very same thing standing, the hips moving side to side. Okay, but what we want to do is wake up the organization of the side body and the hips and the core. Try not to tuck the pelvis. So every once in a while, bring the buttocks down and touch the buttocks to the floor. Okay, and then take the hips up just a little and move side to side. The feet stay pretty close together, the knees are pretty close together, and what you're going to start to do is go over to your left side. Everybody go to the left, and then lift the hips as high as you can. Pick up the right heel off the floor. Strong belly. Then drop the hips down an inch away from the floor. Drop the right heel. Slide across to the right an inch off the floor. It's lower than you think. And then lift up on the right side. Pick up the left heel. Take the right hip as high as possible. Pick up the left heel. Strong belly. Turn your head to the right. Keep the head to the right. Let the hips come down on the right side. Let the head center as you go across an inch off the floor to your left. Take the hips way up the left side. Pick up the right heel. Look to your left. Pull the left shoulder and tricep into the ground. Keep the head to the left. Drop the hips down the left side. And now on your own, finding your own variations as you move across to the other side, an inch off the floor. Lift high on the side, come back down on the side, and then change. Whatever variations you find are fabulous. Take care of your joints. So when you lift the hips, use less of your thigh musculature and more hamstrings and buttocks. In other words, pull the floor down and towards you with your feet, down and back. So you go up and down on the side. Use the shoulders, use your whole body, celebrate. If your low back is pinched, your belly is probably not engaged enough, and you might be leading with your diaphragm. Drop the kidneys, lift the hips more. Just another couple hundred repetitions. Oh man, so good. Okay, one more, wherever you are. Good. Now, let the hips come down in the middle, and go ahead and rest on the floor. Rest the knees against each other, the feet a little wider than the hips. Stretch your legs out. Press your legs out. Once again, and the immediacy of this is a practice of being more subtly aware. The sacral and lumbar release are mirrored through the back of the heart and through the back of the neck, right to the AO joint where the cranium meets the spine. Can you feel that? And let the Achilles relax long so the heels drift downstream. So everyone releasing the low back and the sacrum with the back of the neck. This is very relevant because we just did a bunch of back bending, and that's all back chain. That's the back chain of the body, the back continuity, which is relevant in some ways to your past. And when you enliven and reorganize and strengthen your back, you clarify your past. Bend your knees, walk your feet back in, and let's come up to a seat. All right. So sit cross-legged with the right leg in front again. Let's get into some rhythmical phrases. One of the most fun and dynamic combinations is to move from sitting through various iterations of other shapes back to sitting. And we do it more and more creatively. This is really opening and strengthening the hips and also the shoulders. So this one's going to be spontaneous. Let's see what happens. So let's start. Take your left hand down just behind you and set your right leg, knee up, foot down. Slide your left leg out, way off to the left, and then lift the hips up. Now see if you can put your right hand down on your left side, pick yourself up, take the right leg over the top, and then flip this into a lunge, right leg leading. Okay, so let's try that again. Go ahead and have a seat. So we're making this up as we go. Right leg is in front. We're going to set the left hand just behind the left hip. Set your right leg, so foot down, knee up, and then slide your left leg way out to the left. Now the further you push that foot, the harder this next part is. Put your right hand down outside the left knee, lift the hips, come over the top, kind of through a side plank, and step the right leg, turning 180 to your left into a lunge, right leg leading. Now let's move around in this. So stay strong wherever you would be stretched, like right inner thigh, right hamstrings. Or back hip flexors, the left side psoas iliacus, quadriceps. Then we're going to slide the left foot just behind the right foot and squat, right foot leading. Take your hands off the floor if your knees are okay with it. And we're going to let the left knee come down and touch the left knee. Good. So now both heels are off the floor, the balls of both feet on the floor. The heels are up, just resting. You can tuck those left toes under a little bit with your left hand if you like. Okay, now we're going to try to switch sides, turning to your left. So watch this. You're going to lift the left knee, pivot to your left enough, and then drop the right knee down into an asymmetrical squat. Left foot is in front. But we have the knee down, the right knee down right now. So this is great for opening the soles of both feet, especially the right foot on this side. And then once again, lifting the right knee, leaning back a little. Try not to use your hands. Turn to the right, and you're back in an asymmetrical squat. Set the left knee down. Now step the right foot forward and lift the hips into a crouch. Right leg leading. Moving around. Now, just turning a little to your left, just slide the left foot just in front of the right foot, come down into an asymmetrical squat, left foot leading. And have a seat. Left leg in front, cross legs. See if we can recall most of that. Doesn't have to be exact on the other side. So pause for a moment and give yourself a chance to feel. I think it's natural to get deeply engaged, and we feel in different ways. So when we're deeply engaged, we're feeling the more dynamic, the more sort of, you could call it the active. And then when we give ourselves a chance to be still, we're going to feel the energy more, the moving. And sooner or later, we begin to feel all of it at the same time. Okay, so set your right hand down outside the right hip and set your left leg, knee up and foot down. Slide your right leg out to the right, 90 degrees. Lift up, so put your left hand down too, lift up. Now pivot onto the right leg in a side plank, stepping the left leg over the top into a lunge, left leg forward into a lunge. Move around in this. Try, one of the best variations is to turn the left leg out, the left knee peeling away from the left shoulder, trying to point the left knee where the left toes are pointed the whole time. You can also turn the back leg in, letting the right heel drop to the right, getting on the pinky toe of the back foot. Anyway, slide the right foot just behind the left into an asymmetrical squat. Left foot is in front, and then lower the right knee to the floor. Rest in this for a moment, yeah. Which ought to, that's pretty strong, pretty good. Should feel pretty nice. And then we're going to lift the right knee just enough, and pivot to your right, and so you end up with the right foot leading, and set the left knee down. Once again, lift the left knee, pivot to your left, asymmetrical squat, left foot leading, put the knee down, the right knee down. And then slide the left foot forward enough to lift into a crouch, left foot leading, and moving around in this like a conscious monkey that you are. Finding your variations, your expressions. And then swing the right leg just in front of the left. Right foot just in front of the left, turning a wee bit to your right, and drop down into a squat, right foot leading. And have a seat, right leg in front. So as we were pointed to before, there's a transition from sitting into other keys like lunging and crouching, squatting, and coming back to a seat. Some of the most therapeutic movement you can possibly do. Take a moment. Be the moment. Please realize that for everything benevolent that you feel, everything that feels like life coming back, this is what calls us, at least, is one thing that calls us back to the practice again and again. Not to be attached to life, but to truly unlock it. See what's possible. Celebrate. So, left hand to the floor, just behind the left buttocks. Set your right leg. Lift your hips enough to slide your left leg way out to the side. You're going to lift your hips up, put your right hand down, spin over the top, right leg steps forward into a lunge, moving around in the lunge. So as a variation, everyone, put your hands down inside the front foot, and hop your back leg over to the right, crossing the midline in the lunge. Uncross the back leg. Slide the back foot just behind front foot, so you end up in a squat, right foot leading. Lower the left knee down. Let the sacrum breathe. Turn to your left, picking up the left knee, dropping the right knee. Squat. Now you have to be careful with the toes, obviously. If you're on a rubber mat, that can be tricky. So it works better on tile or wood or concrete even. Once again, pick up the right knee, turn to the right, set the left knee down. And then step the right foot a little bit forward. Maybe without the hands, lift the hips into a crouch, right leg leading. Now try taking the hands like this between your feet, turning the hands out away from each other so you make sort of like a diamond pattern between the feet and the hands. And you're going to drop down into a squat on the left leg. Stay here for a moment. Similar to what we did earlier, but now that feet are much further apart. Lift the hips back up. Take the hands out of the way. Step the left foot just in front of the right, turning a little to your left. Drop down into a squat, left foot leading. And then sit. Left leg is in the lead. And feel, right? Feel. Those of you who have been in and out of class with me over the years have heard me quote Bruce Lee from Enter the Dragon when he's harshly teaching his young student, but he says to his student, and I think he was quoting a Rinpoche that he maybe learned this from, and he said, "Don't think, feel. It is like a finger pointing straight away to the moon. Don't concentrate on the finger or you lose all that heavenly glory," which is the old teaching, of course, of getting caught up in the technique instead of understanding like the experience, the divine experience. I want you to also recognize, please, that when we move through sequences like this, like I didn't plan this, this is not something that I came up with, it just happened. That you get it at a level where you kind of feel how the sequence wants to flow because you're a human in a body and your bones understand. Let's do it again. Let's do it again. Set the right hand down just behind the right hip. Set the left leg, knee up, foot down. Slide your right leg out to the side. Lift your hips. Put the left hand down too. Step over the top, turning around to your right. Left leg forward in a lunge. And move in the lunge. Slide the right foot just behind the left. You're in a squat, left foot leading. Put the right knee down. And then go ahead and lift the right knee back up and turn to your right. You'll pivot in the squat, right foot leading, put the left knee down. Do that again, turn to your left, lift the left knee, careful with the feet, turn to your left, left foot's in front, put the right knee down. Slide the left foot forward. Without your hands, lift the hips into a crouch. Then set the hands down if you like. Moving around. Now let's do what we did last time. So we're going to turn the right leg out more and the left leg out more. Take your hands between the feet. Fingers turn away from each other. And bend the knees, drop into a squat over the right heel like this. Rocking side to side maybe. Just giving you ideas, like we didn't even do the cross and the lunge, and it doesn't matter. Lift the hips, take the hands out of the way. Step your right foot just in front of the left, turning a little bit to the right, and drop down into a squat, right foot leading. And have a seat, right leg in front. Okay. I am going to try to get us through this sequence that happened in my practice this morning, and you're going to have to find your own modifications, and you'll know what I'm talking about when we get into it. But take your time. Let's see how it goes. We'll try a few rounds through the sequence. Let's sit actually with the left leg in front, everybody. Left leg in front. So the first thing we're going to do is enjoy what we did earlier. Put your left hand down, lean to your left, and pushing into the floor. Take care of the left shoulder, strong belly. You can even let the head touch. You can use your right hand to assist. I'm going to come back up And now, lay the left shoulder onto the left knee. You can also slide the left hand way out beyond the left knee. Reach over the top with your right arm if you want. Don't look for a stretch. Strengthen that right side belly in QL. Come back up. Lay the right shoulder on the right knee. Or slide the right hand way out beyond the knee. Draw the kidneys back. Stay forward on the right sitting bone. Maybe reach over the top. And then come back up. And then we're going to push to the right, bringing the right hand down. You can set your left leg here if you like we did many times already. Now, push back up. Okay, now what you're going to do, watch this, is you're going to put your left hand down, pick up your left leg, spin all the way around. Watch. Even on the screen at home, it's like, what am I looking at? Because you're looking at kind of a mirror. So I was over here on the push, I'm going to come back up, set my left hand down, set my right leg, float the left, turn around, and you end up crossing the left leg behind you in a crouch or a fold, with the right leg crossing the left. Now move around in this for a minute. Now here's a tricky bit that I wanted to show. So watch, if you put both hands on the floor in front of the right foot, so everyone walk your head and torso a little bit more over the right foot, bend the knees more like you're going to sit. Then from right here, what I've done is I've tucked my left thigh in behind my right knee, and now I'm going to dip my left shoulder, left chest towards the floor and float the left leg. See if you can find that. Careful, just see if you can float. Beautiful. Good. Now, keep the leg floating, but bend the left knee. Push yourself back up. Turn to your right and carefully sit. And you might end up in Gomukhasana, right knee stacked on top, like cow face. So let me show that again. It all went like this. I was on the right side pushing. I came back up, put the left hand down. You lift and turn, taking the left leg behind. Then it gets dicey. You bend the knees into each other, and float the left leg. I'm on the ball of my right foot, bending the left knee, coming back up and carefully sitting. Now, if that's not possible, it doesn't really matter the transition so long as you end up sitting with your right knee stacked on top. Now stay here for a moment and move side to side. Without the hands touching the floor, let the body move in the water, side to side. Then you're going to turn to your left, a quarter turn, and lift the hips into a crouch. Your right leg will be in front. Just for a moment, you're going to turn around to your left, a 180, and a crouch with the left leg leading. Now drop back onto the right leg into a side squat like this. The left leg is long out in front of you, and the left knee bent. Now, can we move from this? Think in yoga like a pigeon. Put your left hand on the floor inside your right knee. Keep your right leg the way it is. Slide your left leg around behind you and push back into pigeon and point the right foot. Get on the top of the right foot. On the front of the right shin, elbows on the floor, lift the diaphragm. This is strong, it's not a stretch. It's strong, and you're really moving around in this a little bit by moving the hips side to side. Now, come up onto your hands. Lift up and put the right foot in front of you in the crouch. And then turn a quarter turn to your left, kind of like wide legs. And then all you're going to do is walk your hands to the right and slide your left leg behind you, sitting down with the right leg in front, cross-legged. Is everyone okay? Oh my goodness. Pause. Now, so lean to your right, put your right hand down and get a nice push on the right side. Come back up. And now 45 degrees over the right leg. You can either slide the right hand forward, lay the right shoulder on the right knee, whatever you want to do. Come back up. Now, same thing over the left thigh. Left shoulder over the left knee, or slide the left hand and side bend over the left thigh. And then come back up. And now, push up on your left side. Now go ahead and set the right leg. Lean into it. Take care of your left shoulder. Use your right hand if you need to. And then as you come up, you just put your right hand down on your right side. Set your inside leg. The left knee is up, the left foot is on the floor in front of the groin. Lift the right hip and the right leg off the floor, and then turn to your right. Fly the right leg up and behind you and across the midline, landing the right leg behind you across the midline. Stay here for a moment. So you want to position your feet in a way so you can start to tuck the right thigh up against the left knee and hamstrings. And you're going to lean on, hover your chest over your left foot, the one in front, and see if you can lean forward and just take the right leg off the floor. You might be able to lean down more and extend the right leg. Okay. And then if you come up and turn to your left, fold the right leg, turn to your left and carefully sit. You end up cow face, left knee stacked on top. And move around in this, mostly side to side for a moment. Now we're going to turn to your right, a quarter turn, lift the hips. You're in a crouch with the left leg leading. And then turn all the way around to your right into a crouch with the right foot leading. Drop back on the left leg in a side squat. Right leg long, knee unlocked. Smart, active feet, especially the left. Now, take your right hand inside your right knee. Slide the right leg back behind you, setting the left knee down in pigeon, coming down though onto your elbows. Get on the top of the left foot, point the left toes back into the right. You're on the front of the left shin, and strong through the buttocks, strong through the belly, strong through the body. Push the elbows down, lift the kidneys, loosen the neck. I have the back toes tucked under, the heel reaching. And then we're going to put the hands down and lift up until you can step the left foot forward in a long crouch. And a quarter turn to your right, everybody. Wide legs. And all you're going to do is slide your right leg behind your left and have a seat, sitting cross-legged, left leg in front. Let's run through this one more time before we rest. Okay? So here we go. First, we push on our left side. Left hand down, lean into it. Shoulder blades close. Dig your fingertips in. Maybe kiss the earth with your cranium. And then come up. And then lean over the left thigh, maybe the left shoulder on the left knee. Finding your variations, come back up, do the same thing over the right thigh, right shoulder on the right knee, or slide the hand. And then come up, and now we're going to push on the right side, the right hand down, set the left leg, lean into it. Pull the right shoulder head all the way away from the ground. Yeah. Now, we're going to come up. As you come up right, put your left hand down just behind your left hip. Set your inside leg, right knee up, right foot down. Lift the left hip and the left leg. Turn to your left, putting both hands down, taking the left leg high across the midline and dropping it behind you. Crossing, moving around here. Moving around here, butt in the camera. It's fabulous. Now, if you want to do the variation here, you set yourself over the right leg, Lean into it. You're going to fly your left leg. Watch the left shoulder. You're going to be very strong in the left shoulder. From here, bend the left knee. Push back up and sit, turning to your right carefully. You'll end up with your right knee stacked on top. Move side to side here, or forward and back. Explore the shape. Remember that you are not seeking a stretch sensation. Turn to your left a quarter turn. Lift the hips. You're in a crouch. Right leg leading. Go ahead and turn around to your left, 180. Left leg leading in a crouch. Sit back on the right leg in a side squat. Now, take the left hand inside the left leg. Slide the left leg behind you as you set up a pigeon. Elbows down. Pick up the diaphragm. Turn everything on gently. Focus on core here, just the low belly zooming away from the floor. I don't like using that word anymore. Zoom. Love you guys at home. Love you. And then from here, press into the hands. Pick up the right leg in front in a crouch. Turning to the left, a quarter turn. So that you can then slide your left foot just behind the right and sit down. And you end up with the right leg leading. Pause for a moment. Enjoy your life. Just giving Source a chance to express itself. Here we go. Here we go. Lean to the right. Last time, everyone. Push. Yeah. Come back up. Slide over the right leg, right knee, however you do that. Come back up. Do the same thing, 45 degrees over the left leg. Come back up. Push on your left side, set the right leg. Ooh, yeah. Back up. Now, lay the right leg down, set the left leg, right hand down just behind you. Try to lift the hip and the right leg off the floor. I'm hovering. Turn to your right, fly the right leg up, and across the midline, letting it land to your left behind you. Now your left leg is crossing your right leg in a crossed crouch. One of the best hip openers you can do. It's kind of like the cow face pose on the feet. But it's working, which is why it's so good. Now you can bend the right knee into the back of the left, lean onto the left leg in front, fly the right leg out, pushing through the heel, careful with the right shoulder, fold the right leg as you come up, turn to your left, carefully sit, left knee's on top. This time, lean forward and push the knees so deeply into the earth and so powerfully that you do not feel a stretch in your left hip. You just feel engagement and sustainability, true power. Turn to your right, a quarter turn, lift the hips, you're in a crouch, left leg leading. Turn around to your right, 180 degrees, same crouch, right leg leading. The stance naturally lengthens when you turn like that, which is a good thing. It's a natural variation. You're going to drop back onto the left leg in a side squat. And then bringing the right hand inside, take the right leg behind you, setting up your pigeon. Elbows down, palms up. Push the elbows down and lift the base of the rib basket. Kidneys lift. Turn everything on. Use your forearms and move the earth side to side a little bit, taking the upper body reciprocally side to side. Okay, and then we're going to put the hands down and lift up enough to set the left foot forward in a crouch. Go ahead and turn a quarter turn to your right. And now, walking your hands a little to the left, slide your right foot behind you, sitting down, left leg in front. And pause. Do not control your breath. Do not control your heart. Simply observe. Let them be free. Control can be the reappropriation of the power of the mind by the ego to serve itself. When we allow ourselves to feel, and by the profundity of what we feel, take a step back, the power of the mind is put back in place of simply witnessing and discernment and honest translation if and when we need to. Go ahead and lay down, everyone, and rest on the earth, please. You're amazing. Lay down, press the legs out. Whatever the shape is totally good. Just make sure it's working for you and it's as simple as possible. And once again, one of my roles in as being a guide is to help myself and you have a really full tool bag for being human in the most peaceful, profound way. So we start to recognize these patterns of holding that show up in everyone. And emptying the sacrum, and emptying the tail and the pelvic floor, and emptying the kidneys, and emptying the back of the heart. Many of you have heard for years. There's a reason for that. Drop the tail. Lay down the tail, lay down the heels. Lay down the sacrum. Lay down the belly. Lay down the kidneys. Oh, lay down the kidneys. Lay down the heart on the earth. Lay down your lungs. Lay down your voice. Lay down your shoulders. And lay the cranium onto that mossy stone in this shallow stream. And let your exhalation be the water that passes down from the cranium, down the skin of the back and the sides, teasing your heels downstream. Releasing the cranium upstream. Lay it down. Can you feel it? The spaciousness of the soles of the feet that you can actually choose. Can you feel the emptiness, the transparency, and buoyancy of the pelvic floor that you can choose. Can you feel the blossoming of the heart, the power of that blossoming in between the lungs, because it's something that you can choose. Mastery and empowerment of release. Please take your time returning to a seat. Now, of course, you're at home, you can just remain resting in Shavasana. You're not obligated to sit back up. But if you feel like you want to, then go ahead and close with an opening. Just the recognition of, again and again, everyone, the power of practicing together. And I'm deeply honored and grateful always to share this space with you and for your attention, for your presence. Gratitude and blessings. Enjoy your day, everyone. May it be mysterious and miraculous all at the same time. Welcome, Katie. Enjoy your day.
Thanks, Sean.
Welcome. Is that Jackson? Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, it's me.
Good to see you, brother.
Well, yeah, you didn't really, but good to see you.
Felt you.
All right, bye-bye, man.